Hello and welcome to today's webinar. As you might be able to tell, I am in the process of losing my voice. I'm going to do the best that I can. My name is Kim Lumakinga, and I'm the Director of Legacy and Learning here at TFO Family Office Partners. We are so excited to have you here today to learn more about raising resilient kids. Andrew Taylor is the founder of Octagon Mentoring and co-founder of Pure Life Adventure. With decades of experience supporting teens and young adults through emotional, relational, and developmental challenges, Andrew brings a steady, system savvy lens to family life. His work helps parents foster resilience, connection, and self trust in their kids, especially during times of transition. Before proceeding with today's presentation, we have a few housekeeping items to address. Today's event is a webinar. By default, all attendees are muted and have their videos turned off. Today's event is being recorded, and a recording of the webinar will be available later. On the bottom of your screen, you're going to see an icon for Q&A. If you have any questions throughout today's event, please use the Q&A to submit your questions. If we don't get to your questions right away, we have set aside time at the end of today's webinar for Andrew to respond. If you have any questions after today's event, please reach out to your TFO team and they will be happy to assist you. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. We will turn the time over to you now and look forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
Thanks, Kim. Glad the voice is holding up. Guys, we have a plan B if the voice just cuts out. But I'm really honored to be here today. It's always, webinars are interesting because I can't see any of you. I can see a list of names, but I can say your names are beautiful. So send me good vibes so I can feel your energy as we dive into a topic I'm very passionate about. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get going. And as you know, today we're going to be talking about raising resilient kids. And this is a really hot topic. I have been speaking on this now for a long time. More specifically, for the last 6 months, I've been invited to speak and honored to speak on it. Due to my experience, 12 years ago, I started an adventure therapy program in Costa Rica called Pure Life Adventure, and have been primarily working with young adults with depression, anxiety, dropping out of college, struggling to thrive. And it's a therapeutic gap semester program where young people come for up to 3 months. They totally step away from their phone, totally immerse themselves in Costa Rican culture. And usually they're coming to a program like this because they're really struggling and they really need to step away. It's been a very beautiful experience. I've learned so much. I've worked with a lot of families and have been just honored to be a part of that process and spending a lot of time with young adults who are struggling to launch. And because of that, I have a lot of perspective on raising kids. I'm a father of young children as well, which I'll touch on in a second here. But during COVID, my program in Costa Rica closed for 1 year. Costa Rica closed their borders and our business paused overnight. And I started a mentoring and coaching program at that time and started working with young people and their families as they're transitioning out of mental health programs or that might not need a program, but are looking for support and help just on leveling up in their lives and doing good things and living a life with meaning and purpose. And that's been also a very rewarding thing. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of the outdoors. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, skiing and mountain biking and backpacking and rock climbing. So everything I do has an outdoor adventure flair. All of this has kind of crescendoed into corporate workshops, individual and family retreats, coaching, consulting, and speaking. So that's who I am, and that's why I'm talking to you all today. So this is my family, my beautiful wife. You've got Annie on our left. You've got Jordy on the right and Coleman down below, and they look adorable, right? But they are bad kids. Let's be clear. They are bad kids. And my wife, she's awesome, and she's also, imperfect. But the most imperfect of them all is this guy on the left. That's me, with no selfie game at all. And I am not coming at this with you all as a parent expert. I'm not. I don't know that one exists, if you want the honest truth. Dr. Becky's pretty good. I do like a lot of her stuff. But one day, my son, Coleman, he was badgering me about a 3D printer. He's like, Dad, you should really buy me a really nice 3D printer. And my son locks in. He's persuasive. He just can't get away from an idea once he gets it in his head. I'm kind of similar, so it'll serve him well, and it'll also not be great for him at times. But he finally got so upset because I said no. He said, "You're the worst dad in the world." And you've all had this experience if you have kids. You're the worst dad in the world. And I said, "That's funny because last night you said I was the best dad in the world." And he's like, "Well, you're the worst dad now." And in my effort to lighten the situation, I said, "By the way, who is the best dad in the world? Do you know?" And he turns to me and he's like, "I don't know, Dad, but I bet you his name is Bob." And we both just totally started laughing. We just he crushed it. We had this hilarious joke and it lightened the mood, obviously. So then we started this thing in our family of Bob. Bob's the best dad in the world. And so whenever I tell him no, or we're arguing or whatever, I'll bring Bob, be like, "Do you think Bob would let you do that?" Like, Bob would for sure let me have ice cream. And I'm like, "But he wouldn't, because if he was the best dad in the world, he wouldn't spoil you." So Bob would say no, and I'm saying no, so that means I'm the best dad in the world. All that said, I'm not. I get grouchy. I yell. I've made tons of mistakes. I'm a work in progress when it comes to younger kids. But I do have a unique perspective in that I have seen young adults who are struggling to launch. And that's the spirit with which I can speak today and talk about all the ideas that I have based on my experience on how to raise resilient kids. Because if you can give them one thing, I think resiliency would be one of the best things you can give them, preparing them for adult life. Let's talk about planet Earth. All right. We have been on this planet for roughly 300,000 years, according to the scientists. Okay. 99% of that time we have lived as tribes. 3% of that 99% has been agricultural. What that means is the last 250 years accounts for 0.08% of our time on this earth. Homo sapiens, us. Okay. Our brains took thousands, 300,000 years to develop as tribes. And now we are living a very different society than what our brains were developed for. And I want to start by framing our conversation with this, because everything I see that I struggle with, my kids struggle with, people are struggling with right now has to do with the fact that we were wired for one thing and now we're living another. And that wiring kept us alive, helped us survive, and helped us thrive. That wiring can still do the same thing, but we have to work a lot harder now to make sense of it, because our DNA is wired for something different: survival in difficult circumstances. So a few of these ancient drives that helped us survive: laziness. We are all lazy. When people call me and they're like, "My son or daughter's lazy," I'm like, "Yes, they are. And so are you, and so am I." We all fight laziness. This was a survival instinct that helped us preserve resources. If scarcity was what you lived on in a hunter-gatherer society, there was a default to rest if there weren't resources, and to spend energy only on acquiring resources. And that's why laziness is a part of our lives. As long as we can name that, we're good. And we tend to be like, "Well, that person's lazy." Yes, I know, we all are. So laziness, fear, and vigilance. We are wired to look for danger. It was important for the survival of our offspring. Hypervigilance of your children, of our children, is embedded in our DNA. And think about this. We also had to continually be thinking about, is there a saber-toothed tiger around the next corner? And I'm going to bring it full circle. This explains first world problems because we are wired to look for danger. Once we get a certain set of problems resolved, we will find another set of problems. If anybody noticed that, like as soon as I get this problem solved, I'm good to go. As soon as I get this level of wealth, everything will be resolved in my life. As soon as this thing happens or that thing happens, I will have no problems in my life. The thing happens, we're happy, we adapt quickly, and we start saying, oh, there's 5 new problems on the horizon. And there's a lot of data and science, modern data and science to back this up. It's called prevalence induced concept change. Really long word. We're going to drop that and just move on. But we are wired to be vigilant and fearful. Entitlement. If we lived in a tribe, you've got to advocate for yourself. You have to look at things in terms of what I think is fair and what I deserve. It's also a survival instinct. If we didn't, you would not survive in a tribe, assuming the tribe maybe has some conflict around who deserves what and why. So entitlement is embedded in our DNA. And then one of the last things I want to touch on is comfort seeking and pain avoidance. Discomfort equals danger. Cold weather means I could get sick and I could die, so I avoid it. All right. There's a million examples you could think of, right? But anything uncomfortable could be dangerous to my body. So, and at the same time, in a hunter-gatherer society, so much of the life is uncomfortable and is adapting to that discomfort as well. Now we live in a society that runs at 72 degrees Fahrenheit in your car, in your office, in your home, and you fluctuate. If you live in Southern California, which is fantastic, I love it down there for that very reason, right? Our food is readily available, tons of calories, healthy, unhealthy, it's all there and on the drop of a hat. And we're not wired for it. We're not wired to regulate it because of that 0.08% of time we've spent in the industrial to digital age that we're experiencing right now. So how this all holds us back, the laziness now manifests as apathy, comfort seeking, addiction. The fear and vigilance in our DNA leads to anxiety, chronic stress that we don't work out with our bodies, right? If I was stressed and fearful about a tiger and a tiger jumped out, I would then release all these chemicals and run and fight and get chemicals out of my body. Now I sit at my desk and experience the same danger, and I sit in those chemicals all day long, and I don't get them out of my system, assuming I don't go to the gym before I go home. And I think this is one of the keys for overparenting, which we're going to talk about next. Entitlement looks like greed and selfishness and self-importance, comfort seeking and pain avoidance. I mean, danger is rare, but we love comfort. By default, we will seek it if we're not intentional. How does this relate to modern parenting? Helicopter parenting. We've been talking about this phrase for years. What is it? I like the word overparenting more. I think that it's just a little more general, and it just describes this, like, if you feel yourself as a parent doing too much, wanting to do too much, you're overparenting. Helicopter parenting is a form of that. That's hovering. That is rescuing. There's a problem. I'm here. I got you. It is worrying. Now we've got Life 360. You can see where your kids are all the time. Now that sounds nice, but I'm guessing the people on this call grew up when I did, roughly. Gen Xer, proud of it. MTV, I was there when it happened. Okay, if like we grew up and our parents didn't know where we were, and that was important to our development. It was liberating. And I now have families that I work with, and they're like, I saw my son was at this, he's at college, junior in college. I saw he was at this bar. He got home at this hour. He drove too fast on the way home. And they're stressed. They're talking to their son. He's stressed. And I'm like, listen, I understand the vigilance and the fear and the need to monitor. It's not helping. It's not helping because every time a parent says that, I'm like, did you go out to the bar late in college? Did you drive too fast? Did you make poor decisions in college? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and your parents weren't calling you because they didn't have the technology to hover. It's not healthy. It doesn't help. It doesn't help that young person grow into adulthood. It doesn't help the mom and dad to let them go. That's just one example, but it's at its core, it's over functioning. Kim, did you want to say something about this one?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I mean, I'm guilty of definitely the overparenting and rescuing. My son is now 21 years old in college and he's thriving. And Andrew, you and I had this conversation of even though I've had a tendency to go in and rescue him anytime like something's gone wrong, I've not really allowed him to properly fail in all ways. He has kind of, despite my overparenting, he has a great sense of independence. I don't feel like he's really been poorly impacted. And I think one of the things you had said to me was, well, the personality of the child matters as well. And he's definitely like one of those kids that was like a rule follower who, has to be 20 minutes early for everything. He's, all about time management. So he has those like skills that I guess kind of allowed him to still grow as an independent adult.
Yes, thank you. And it's such a good point because every kid is different. And in my experience, and I give parents a lot of grace, a lot of parents who are helicopter parenting, and if you're listening right now and you're like, yep, I'm doing it, it might be that your son or daughter has ADHD, or maybe some high functioning autism spectrum disorder, or maybe just some deficits that you're concerned about, or oppositional defiance. And that's where I see parents go overboard. And with good reason. You're watching your son and daughter struggle. I'm not saying don't support them or get help for them, but there's a really fine line from support and assistance to overparenting. And oftentimes, if there are deficits, neurodivergence or struggles, um, you know, you're going to need to you're going to make that mistake and have that tendency. If you've got a rule follower like Kim's talking about, like if you got a number of kids, you're going to see this. You're going to see your kid that just has it together. You're going to see your kid that doesn't. And kids just come sometimes how they are.
You know what,
Another type of
Andrew? I
yeah.
just want to say also, I think it's really difficult when your child is growing, older, becoming an adult. Like when he calls you and says, "Hey, mom, can you help me with this?" Like my tendency is, of course, to go, "Absolutely," because I'm only going to have so many more chances at this point that he's going to call me and say, "Mom, I need help."
Yes, we're going to talk about that later on, and such a good point because you're looking for connection, bids for connection, and when you have a young adult who is gone and away and launching and probably pushing you away, which is healthy, by the way, when they call and do need help, it's like so meaningful to a parent that's letting a kid go into the world, and so it's yes, I hear you for sure, and I see a lot of that. Snowplow parenting is another style where we overdo it. And that's where you go in and you just move all obstacles out of the way. You make things easy. It's outcomes based, meaning like I want an outcome for my kid, therefore I will do what I need to do to get it. It's very damaging, not just to kids, but to society, to their friendships, their relationships, their self esteem, because they get the outcome, but in my experience, kids have an intuition that they didn't earn it and that they're not getting what they need. They can't put words to it, but then that's where I have seen a lot of acting out as well. I'm going to just put in a shout out right here to coaches and teachers. um, this is something that I see very prevalent and a real struggle. Do not beat up on your coaches and teachers. People are getting out of the profession, they're over it. I read an article on a 15-year-old kid who was a lifeguard. He saved this kid's life, jumped in, saved his life, did CPR, and the parents sued him because he didn't jump in quick enough. I'm not going to tell my 15-year-old kid to go get a lifeguard job based on that story. And so like we need these people who are willing to work with our kids. And it's also an area that I see a lot of parents making the mistake of intervening. I played sports my entire life in through college. I never once heard my dad or mom criticize a coach. And I asked my dad about this about 10 years ago, and he said there were a lot of coaches that I didn't agree with, didn't like how they were doing it. I never said a word, and he never said a word to me. He said it was very important that you knew you had to support that coach either way. He said, I knew I would do you no favors if I intervened. So this is another form that we see of just over parenting. The common thread on these right now, and I really want to speak to this, if you're a family with a lot of resources and a lot of time, high net worth families, um, you it's easier to make these mistakes. It's easier to get into this because of the time and because of the resources. If we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and a lot of those basic needs start getting met or are met, we end up at the top, which is self-actualization, problem solving, passion, morality and creativity, and self-esteem and confidence. It is embedded, as we said earlier, in our DNA to want what's best for our kids. So I bring no judgment or shame to this conversation. As I mentioned earlier, it has been in our DNA for 300,000 years to want what's best for my kids. If I have all the time and all the money to give what's best to my kids, you bet this is going to be a struggle, because what's best for them versus what I can give to them is in conflict when there's wealth and poverty as well. It adds a certain level of complexity to the situation, and that's why I really like speaking to it, because to acknowledge it and name it, we can start creating solutions. And in a very short and basic way, you just have to be more intentional. You have to
I
be more
think the other,
thoughtful. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, I think the other struggle is, especially for people who grew up differently, and all of a sudden now we do have resources that we can invest in our children. It's hard to not say, oh, I didn't have that growing up, but I'm going to give it to my kids.
Absolutely, it's such a driver, and again, I think it's part of our DNA. It's embedded in us to want to give what's best for our kids, or give them more than we had. I grew up in what I would call privilege, broad definition, but I grew up privileged. And it's funny, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I'm like, why do I feel like it would be a failure to provide less for my kids than I was provided? But I do. I don't know. That's some, like, I got to unpack that somewhere else with someone way smarter than me. I'm sure there's some science behind it, but I genuinely do. It makes no sense. It's irrational, because my kids have a really nice life, and I do too. And it's bothering me. We'll move on. We're not here to analyze the depths of my soul. The metaphor for parenting that I like and I'm using a lot right now is lighthouse parenting. Be stable, be that beacon on the shoreline, a role model. And I like this metaphor of, like, imagine you're this lighthouse and your kids are out in a boat and there's a big storm and they're going up and down on the waves. All right. The emotional ups and downs of children are relevant to this metaphor. You want to be the lighthouse, grounded, there giving guidance, not in the boat going with them up and down. Your emotions cannot be riding these waves with them. Get out of the boat. You'll be helpful from out of the boat, not grabbing the oars and I got you and you're excited, so I'm excited, and you're super down and so I am, and you're falling apart, so I am too, and let me row us to safety. I think it's in our nature to want to do that. I don't think it's helpful. And for a million reasons, they need to, first of all, know that they can row that boat themselves, and that they can regulate it, and that they can see the storms through to calmer seas. All right. They also need to know that they can always look to the shore and see somebody there that's like, you got this. So I say this a lot. The number one gift you can give your children, the most important thing you can give them, is your own personal well-being. If you struggle with things, and we all do, get help, get support, do what you can do to be the lighthouse in that family situation. That's more important than anything else you can give your children. Now, 5 pillars to being a lighthouse. These are These are what I came up with. I like them. We're going to talk about these in the context of each developmental phase as we move on in the webinar. But connection, first and foremost, we're teaching our children how to connect as human beings. This is very difficult right now because of social media and screens and technologies. I don't need to talk about it. I'll touch on it. I'm sick of talking about it. I'm sick of hearing about it. There's a lot of good stuff out there. Jonathan Haidt is I think, the leader in this thinking right now with his book, The Anxious Generation. Highly recommend it. Follow his podcast, follow his everything. But connection is hard to come by, and it's one of the most important things we can teach our children. Some of you listening might be really good at connection, and quite frankly, some of you might not. All right? Some people are born with an ease with connection, and some are not. We all can work on it and improve. All right. If it doesn't come easy to you, it doesn't mean it's not important. It's something you need to work hard on. If it comes easy to you, be grateful. All right. The next thing is boundaries. All right. There's got to be rules. Being a lighthouse is being boundaried. It's your kid looking at something and saying, I know where it is. I know where to look. It's there. I may not like it, but it's there and it's consistent. And when kids don't have boundaries, they feel unsafe. The irony is they'll yell and kick and scream when you set one, but the less boundaries they have, they feel like they're in the ocean in a boat going up and down, and they can't see anything. They don't know where they are. Resilience. The whole purpose of this, right? Grit and resilience, discomfort. We will have to, as future continues to develop, as we continue to develop into the future, and the technologies that are happening right now. I mean, I saw the Tesla robot the other day and my mind is blown. I can't wait to not do my laundry anymore and all these things. It's going to require me to choose resilience. It already does right now. Now we're choosing resilience. Now we're getting in cold plunges and we're choosing to go hiking and hunting and things to tap into that part of our DNA that is wired for something that feels good, even though it's uncomfortable. That will be a choice that will be harder and harder to make in the future and more important to make. Independence, we all want it, we all love it. And then mattering. Mattering is a paradigm, a psychological paradigm that's really important to understand because everybody wants their kid to have self-esteem and self-confidence. You cannot love that into them. You cannot give it to them. You can't gift them that. All right. No matter how many times you say I love you and a kid feels loved, if they're not doing things that make them feel like they matter, I'll go into it more. All right. A while back, the positive psychology movement started. And even before that, Dr. Benjamin Spock in the 70s and 80s, he was the popular parent guru at the time. He said, if you just love them enough and tell them they're special, they're gonna have everything they need to thrive as adults. This was what the millennials were told. If you're a millennial, you might resonate with that. And this is why we were so critical of millennials as they were growing up, because we're like, they think they're special because everyone gets a trophy and whatnot. I'm not bothered by that. I mean, there's a lot of ways to screw up a generation, probably not the worst way. I love millennials. I married one. I'm kind of a millennial, like all is well. I'm not coming after you guys. But mattering is not just saying you're special just because you exist. Mattering means I'm special because I bring something of substance and value to the situation. I contribute. I do. There's an action involved that people are relying on me for. When you're in a family that doesn't have a lot of needs, this is an easy miss. When things are taken care of, I mean, great. We all want that. We all want this Tesla robot that's going to do everything. And again, it's going to make things harder. But when I'm doing and providing, mowing the lawn, some families, their kids are working to put food on the table, and that's a difficulty and a hardship. But you bet they're through the roof on the mattering. Like, I matter to this situation. That builds self-esteem, that builds resilience, that builds confidence. So we're going to look at the different developmental phases of kids through these 5 lenses. Early childhood, 2 to 6. If I could see you, I would ask you to raise your hands and say, who's here? I'm here. I have a 3-year-old and I have twin 7-year-olds. Big emotions. lots of testing of the limits. They're trying to figure out what's going on. How do I connect with my 2 to 6 year olds? Free play on their terms. Most of these kids, their day is your day. They leave the house when you leave the house. They come home when you come home. If you're gonna have time for them to feed them, it's all on your schedule. These kids thrive connecting with you in play on their terms. One of the things that I've really learned that has helped me connect in this phase of childhood with my kids is wrestling. When they're butting heads with me and they're mad and they're angry and I can tell they're just feeling really irritated with the fact that they don't have control over much, and they don't, that's when we'll do a 30-minute wrestle time. And all bets are off. It's their time. Whether we pick up swords, whether we throw foam balls at each other, whether they're jumping on dad. I mean, they can't like jump on my stomach. They tried to invent this game called Daddy Trampoline where they'd like hold my hands and jump on my stomach. And I was like, yeah, not happening. I'm gonna break a rib here. So there are some limits on that. But if you're struggling to connect with your 2 to 6 year olds, get on the floor with them. Boundaries. What are the types of things you're going to be saying to them? Don't hit, don't bite, don't throw food. They might anyway. Please and thank you. Start with the manners. Go hard. Please, thank you. Lots of those things. I'd say screens, but please, I hope it's obvious. All right. There's a lot of data out there, very limited screens. Please, 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 please. This has to be so limited at every phase, but especially this one. What are the resilient things they can do? Dress themselves, pick up toys. There's some basic chores they can start doing that are going to help them. Independence, give them choices when you can. I think this is a parenting 101 thing. Milk or water, maybe let them do their clothes or their hair. Obviously, you want them to look nice, but I mean, don't die on those heels. This is an expressive time and a time for them to start learning to figure this out. My 7-year-old boy came out the other day dressed. He had his baseball pants on for school, and we were like we're like, buddy, what are you thinking? He's like, I don't know. They're comfy. They're like sweats. I like them. And my wife and I immediately were like, no, you can't do that. He's like, why not? And I was like, fair enough. You can do it. If you go to school today, I just want you to be prepared. Your buddies might make fun of you. I support you. But if your buddies make fun of you, are you going to be bummed out or can you handle that? He's like, I'm not really in the mood for that. I'm like, well, your call. 10 minutes later, he showed up in regular school pants. I was kind of hoping he'd go in the baseball pants. I was kind of, curious about the outcome. But, and then mattering, being a helper, setting the table, feed pets, pick up the toys, the basics. You should really start that foundation. And I tell people, these are fights worth having. Kids will naturally push back because they're naturally lazy, like all of us. And so there's this going to be this pushback as you set boundaries and as you ask them to do things that are going to be good for them, but that they're not going to want to do. That's going to be true at every phase, by the way. Middle childhood, 6 to 11 years old. All right, they're getting into friend groups. They're starting to notice their peers. They're starting to notice you less. A big chunk of your time as a parent spent with your kids is happening in these first 11 years. People with teenagers and young adults, you know what I'm talking about. This is where I don't have the hard data, but 80 some odd percent, let's just say, of your time is being spent with your kids up to about 11 or 12 when they turn into teenagers and start pushing you away, getting busier and into other things. So it's a time where they start discovering themselves, their habits, their hobbies and their interests. Connection, family dinner. Cannot say enough about family dinner. Tons of data supports it. It's hard to do. We're not 100%. I don't advocate for that. There's other things and commitments and things happening. Family dinner whenever you can. Phones off. Everything everything out of the way. It is food and it is us sitting at this table and connecting on the day. Conversations about friends, conversations about school, work, everything. We have a few family rules in our family. Don't be boring. So when we ask our kids how their day went and they give us one word, we're like, that's against the rules. Can't be boring. And there's some days I've had a long day and I give a one word answer. My kids will call me out, Dad, can't be boring, Dad. All right, fair enough. Today was hard. The yada yada yada, right? I get into it too, but this is a really powerful way to connect at this age. And I also think driving to and from things, be it sports or dance or chess club, whatever it may be, this is where kids really start getting into these things. There's some sacred time in that vehicle. The other day, my wife was like, "Hey, do you want to pick up Annie?" And or like so and so can pick her up, and I was like, you know what, I actually I got the time, I'm gonna pick her up, even though it would have been convenient to have the help. I wanted to have that 10 minutes in the car with her, just me and her, no one else around, just to talk on the off chance we could really connect. And I think that's something to be intentional about. Boundaries, when to do homework, chores, definitely go hard on the chores at this age. And if you don't, it's going to get that much harder over time. It's an expectation. If you're part of this home, we all pitch in, we all help. Chore charts, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I'm a bad dad. I am not Bob all the time. And therefore, I don't know. But there's a lot of ways to go about this. I also think like this is a really good teaching time. I'll never forget. My dad taught me how to shake hands with someone at this age. And I remember he introduced me to a friend, and I gave this like limp hand, and I turned away and looked at the ground and said, "Nice to meet you." Yeah, didn't say anything, and my dad pulled me aside and said, "Hey, let me teach you how to shake a hand. You know, you look them in the eye, good firm grip. You look them right in the eye and you say, 'Nice to meet you. How are you?' You say something. Those are the keys to a good handshake." Um, Resilience. All right, kids are going to start exploring and discovering and trying new things. You're teaching hard work here. Encourage trying new things. Um, Sports, instruments, arts, whatever it may be. Um, just encourage it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Great. Let's make it messy. Like, don't be perfect. Like, this is how we learn. Look for examples in your own life and others to show how other people are trying and failing. My brother-in-law just ran for mayor of his city and lost. And I was like, "Hey, you know how we've been all cheering him on and working hard for him?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "He lost." I'm like, "Oh, that's bad." I'm like, "You know what? But it's also good he tried, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I said, "He's okay. He's fine." And I'm just looking for examples to try and show them that that I'm proud of people who try and fail, and that's a good thing. Independence, money can be a struggle. We're trying to teach our kids how to like do chores and get money. There's a lot of ways to do that. We have a thing called dolphin points because we call ourselves the pod squad. A group of dolphins or orcas is a pod, and they work together and they're smart and they're nurturing. Like we created a little family culture thing, kind of informally. It's been fun, but if they do something good, they get a dolphin point. A dolphin point's worth 10 cents. They do certain chores, they get like 5 points and things like that. So we have a point system. We've evolved into it. It's working. It's not for everybody, but it's working for us. Um, Mattering. This is a great time to start helping siblings manage their personal space, their room. Hey, clean your room. How do you feel about your room? What posters do you want to put on your room? Let's make this fun and interesting. And also just being thoughtful of others. Again, we do that dolphin point thing. If we see someone voluntarily in our family help out another kid, we go hard on that. Like, hey, dolphin point, like, way to be thoughtful. No one asked you, and you just did a nice thing. Always try and go heavy on the positives in the reinforcement that you're doing. Early adolescence, buckle up. Here we go. Again, there's probably a lot of you out there that are in this phase or have been through it. It's tough. Kids start doing this important thing, and this is developmental, and it's painful, and it's annoying, and it's hard, but they start individuating. Okay? They start pushing you away. You become not cool. You become not smart. You become uninfluential in their lives. You can fight this. You can hate it, but it's not going away. This is important for their development to become who they are. They want to create a sense of individuality separate of their parents. All right? That phase is over of being really influential to them. You can do it in different ways, but that time is gone. All right? Now you're trying to set them up for success with the community. with the tribe. And I've seen this 1,000 times. That's why coaches and mentors and teachers, if you have a church congregation, if you have an extended family, aunts and uncles or cousins who are influential in their lives, you put those people around your kids as intentionally as you can. You give those people the green light. Can you please, I want you to be an influence in my kid's life, and encourage your kids to go to them. Encourage that. They are going to avoid you. There's not a magical sentence in the eternities that you can utter that's going to make a 12 to 14-year-old full of hormones that are shifting, individuating from you go, oh my gosh, you guys are so smart and you're right. And I'm sorry, mom and dad. It's just they're experiencing something very different. Now, the irony is I'll come in and start talking to that 12 or 14-year-old or the aunt or the coach or the teacher, and they'll say the exact same thing. And they'll be like, my teacher's so smart. My coach is so smart. You don't know what you're talking about, mom and dad. And you're sitting there thinking, I said the exact same thing to you. And like, you're the idiot. You're the biggest idiots in the world. And those other people are smart. Lean into that. That's the move when you have teenagers. Encourage them, push them towards those people that you know are going to give good advice, be good role models, and all those things. Connection. And Kim, you touched on this, and this kind of starts from here on out. And that is being available to talk, even if it's late. If they show you a bid for connection and it's 1 a.m, take it, because you may not get it again for another month. All right. Listen and validate. Do your best not to jump in and fix. Do your best. It's hard. It's really hard because remember, we are wired to want what's best for our kids. It's in our DNA. Okay. And that's where you'll make a lot of mistakes. It's okay. Keep trying, keep correcting, and keep going. All right. Okay. Want to keep going on time. Social media, there's a lot out there on this. Curfews, respect, resilience, allow for failure. Give room for failure. Do not snowplow. Do your best not to focus on outcomes. If they're there, great. Focus on effort, focus on commitment, focus on process, focus on habits. Those are the things you should be rewarding after a football game or a baseball game or after a piano recital, after a dance thing or a chess tournament or a play. You worked so hard on that, honey. I'm so proud of how hard you worked. I'm so proud of you for trying and putting yourself out there. That's how you're going to encourage resilience at this age. Give them as much independence as you can to choose their classes and jobs and things like that. Jobs right now become a really cool thing, by the way. And we'll talk about it the next step. But mattering, they can volunteer, take on a full house project. Hey, the lawn is yours. From now on, I'm not going to tell you when to do it, but it is yours. If it's not done, that's on you. And then give them some space to express themselves. I always get bitter about this one. I grew up in a conservative family, lovely family. Like, I hit the jackpot, you guys. But my mom would sit there at the barbershop and tell him how to cut my hair. And I would fight for a mullet. I was like, I got to have a mullet. It was the 80s. And it's all come back now. I know, I've seen it around, but like, and it, to this day, I'm bitter about it because it didn't matter, right? And of course, some people care more how their kids look than others. Generally, I don't think it's healthy to be overly parenty about that, because I mean, if your kid wants to dye their hair pink and they do, so be it. It's kind of, again, the only freedom they have in expressing themselves and getting to know themselves, and that phase will end at some point. So give them some space to explore that.
Can I
Late
answer this
adolescence.
quick question?
Yeah.
You were saying like let them own a chore, right? Like, but what if they don't do it?
Natural consequences. You got to find some natural consequences, and yes, that's a highly likely thing. But and it might be that there's some contingencies. Using the car, those types of things. I'm cool with paying for chores as they get into teenage years, paying more substantially, and those types of things, and whatnot. So yeah, I think, and then like if they genuinely just drop the ball on it, you go out and do it, but then there's a natural sort of play out, and consequences are really hard. So, and it's different for every family and every kid. All right, late teenagers, okay? They're getting into risk taking now. They're getting ready for college. They're getting ready to really put themselves out in the world. And that individuation is stronger than ever. You probably don't see them much. I'm okay with that. It's a good thing. They need to be out, discovering who they are, being around their peers. They will make poor decisions. You hope they're safe. Yes, you pray that they're safe. And yes, teenagers do stupid things. I got a ticket going 105 and a 55 the week I got my driver's license. Dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. Their brains aren't fully developed. They're not going to make great decisions all the time. Pray that they're safe, but they've got to explore life and get out there if they're going to launch into adulthood. Show up for them. Take an interest in their interests. If they're into music and theater, take them to the play that's in town. If they're into the guitar, sit down and say, hey, show me how this thing works. Take an interest in their things. Again, you have introduced to them your hobbies and interests up until now in their life for the most part. If they've taken to them, awesome, that's fun. If they haven't, they're taking to other things and show an interest. It's going to go a long way in terms of connection for you and them. Honesty for boundaries, honesty, curfew, responsibilities in the home. While they're in their home, while they're in your home, you get to say, and I'm going to talk about that more on the next slide, but resilience, they're applying for college, summer jobs, AP classes, things like that. Help, nudge, maybe support if there's neurodivergence involved or deficits involved. Get really informed, get a lot of support on how to support them. It's going to be really easy to overfunction for them at this phase, and that's going to set them back. So be really thoughtful and careful with that. Independence. The reason I'd say all depends here, it depends on what your kid is doing. Now, if you've got a kid that's stealing cars, doing drugs, living really recklessly, you might need to really tighten things up, because it is a safety issue and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of professional support out there. Lean into that. As I said earlier, if you've got a 17-year-old who follows all the rules and is on time to everything and is doing all the things, I'd give that kid a lot of independence. And if you have two kids that are on the opposite ends of that spectrum, I would sit the one down that doesn't have as much independence and say, listen, man, you don't have it yet. I want to give it to you, but you need to demonstrate responsibility in these areas. Mattering, this is a good time for them to start paying for some things, even if you can afford it. Paying for things and working a job, not for you, working a job shows accountability to someone else. It's not about the money. It's about the meaning, the purpose, and the skills that they'll learn and being accountable to someone else. Those are reasons to have them start paying for some things and working a job, even if it's not a need in the home. Okay, next slide. Emerging adulthood. This is my sweet spot. We're getting there. Connect. As Kim said earlier, if that college kid calls, drop everything and pick up that phone. If they've moved out of the house, be available. But this is when you really start saying, hey, you're now you in this world. And it's time for you to like really make some decisions for yourself. And here are the decisions I want you to make, but you're going to live with them either way. Boundaries, your home, your rules. Now, if your 22-year-old comes home for the holidays, it is your home and your rules. If they move back in with you, which is happening a lot and will happen more because housing's become ridiculous. And this is a little tricky. Those are your rules in your home. All right. I support that all day long. This is where it gets tough. And that is if you're paying for it, you get input. Now, I encourage people to look at college as an investment. You're an investor investing into that young person. But you also want to be careful to walk this line of not like, I give you money, so I get say on everything you do. And that's a really tough line to walk and one you should be thoughtful of. Resilience, offer advice, but let them fail. Support, don't steer. Mattering, ask for help with younger siblings or your parents and those types of things. You will make a mess of it. in Japanese culture, there's an art form called kintsugi, where when a pot breaks, they put it together with gold. And I just think it's a beautiful artwork. You're going to blow it. You are going to make a ton of mistakes like I am. And it's not about that. It's about repair. It's about continuing to try. If you've screwed up a lot, I've had a lot of people say, what if I'm already at 16 years old and haven't done, the things to set my son or daughter up for success? Sit down and have a conversation with them now. We need to go, but we need to redo this. Mom and dad did it wrong. And it was really comfortable for you, but it's not serving you. So we need to make some, tough changes in our home to try and set you up for success. We've got about 8 minutes left, and I actually need to bounce, so would love to answer some questions.
So, Andrew, I was just thinking, I'm actually at a conference right now, and we're talking about how more and more kids are moving back home, adult children, and some of them are just not launching, and that can be a struggle. And so, one of the interesting things that I heard this evening was that parents need to like sit down and create kind of a contract to say these are our expectations while you're in our home, and revisit that contract every like 6 months or whatever the expectation is. But it's really important because I know families get into those situations where they're like, I don't know what to do. My kids live in my house. I don't know if they're ever going to move out. They're not looking for a job, all those things.
Exactly. You nailed it. And you've got to set expectations, be really clear about them, put them in writing. And I think there's a clear difference from you were 16 years old and you were in my care, and you're 26 years old and now you live in my home. And if you're 26 years old and you live in my home, we need help. There's work to be done, and you've got to contribute. Maybe there's a timeline for support. And again, the economics of it all are going to get harder and harder because housing's just become so expensive. It's very different than it was even when I was 26 years old. And you could really easily find affordable housing within range. And so I think this is going to be a struggle for this next generation of young kids right now. And it's going to require a lot of intention.
And setting boundaries.
Yes. Yeah.
I think maybe you could take a few moments to talk about your book launch.
Yeah, I've been, when I started my program in Costa Rica, I sat down and made a list of everything I was 35 at the time. I sat down and made a list of everything I wish I had known at 20 years old that I now knew at 35, from a lot of pain and heartache and mistakes, and created a life curriculum for the program in Costa Rica, and taught it every week for 8 years, and sat for thousands of hours with young adults talking about mindset, taking care of your body, career development, relationships, just a lot of life stuff. And it allowed me to really refine those concepts. And so when I started Octagon Mentoring, I added a handful of topics to that curriculum that organically grew through the years, and put it all into my book called Launch. So my book Launch, it's written to young adults. It's for people at every age, can benefit from it. It really goes into my philosophy on living in the modern day times that's changing quickly, and then 8 different areas of life that we all should be informed on, and have self-awareness around, and be thoughtful about as we grow and develop as adults.
Right. And we don't have a question, but we do have a comment in the Q&A you might want to read or address.
I can't see it. Do you mind?
Okay.
Oh, I'll stop the share. Have 2 kids under 3. I'm a millennial, grew up on MTV2, love it, but want to raise my kids to be self-aware, confident, and respectful adults. But I don't want to be so overbearing for fear that they won't be. Who knows when Gen AB kids will be? Who knows what Gen AB kids will be? But God forbid they turn out like Gen Z. All right. It's not uncommon to be frustrated with the youngest generation, kids these days, right? It's been said. It was said about us. It was said about you as a millennial. Now we're saying about Gen Z. The world is changing quickly and dramatically, and those younger generations, they're important to instill change in society. They usually change it for the better, albeit uncomfortable for the older generations. So the difference right now, though, is we're being introduced to technologies at a rate that's unprecedented. I didn't have internet till college. Now we're looking at AI, robots. I mean, the technologies and what that's going to do for these younger generations, generations A and B. It's going to be so disruptive that I don't even think we know. To be really broad and vague, things are going to get more comfortable, and we're going to have to continue to choose more discomfort. It will be a thing to choose. And there will be the people in the society that choose it and thrive, and then the rest of the world that numbs out through mindless entertainment and laziness and those other things that, God, I'm getting like totally dystopian here. But it's that will be the challenge, is choosing discomfort. And I think with young kids, I'm a big fan of talking to them in ways that can connect to them. But my kids know what the word grit means. They know what the word entitlement means. They know what the word flexibility means versus rigidity. We've tried to give them some language around some of their behaviors that are problematic, to let them know, like, the reason I'm not buying you a 3D printer is because I need you to not be spoiled and entitled. My son knows what that means. He doesn't like it, which makes me not Bob, but it's language that I'm teaching him. So it's not just no. It's not just no or yes, because I can. It's no, because I don't want you to be spoiled. If I give you everything you ask for, you'll be spoiled and you're not going to be grateful. You're going to struggle in other ways, buddy. I know it's not what you want to hear, but that's dad trying to do my best here.
There's one other question about a book you mentioned.
Can you get us the title and the author? Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Generation. Another book I highly recommend is The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. The Comfort Crisis. And then the third book I recommend is New York Times bestseller Launch by Andrew Tipp. Just kidding. It's not a New York Times bestseller. But yeah, gotta put in a plug. Gotta put in a plug, right? Hey, thank you all so much. Really honored to be here. I hope it's helpful. Please call me, reach out if you want extra support or help, or you're interested in this. We got a politically related question. A recent survey indicated that 67% of college kids are in favor of a socialist government. Why does the younger generation not want democracy? Can we talk with them about this? Should we talk with them about this? I want to say, who was it that said, if you're young and you're not liberal, you have no heart. If you're older and you're not conservative, you have no brain. Not taking a stance one way or another. The younger generation typically is a lot more liberal. I think right now what they're looking at, though, is when I was in college, buying a house was very realistic in short time. And this generation, they're looking at that and saying, I'm never going to buy a house. Just to name one example. I don't think this is super uncommon, but I'm not a historian, and so I don't know. But I think I would say, if you're going to talk to your kids about this, be open-minded. Don't come in hot on like how they should believe. There's a good chance that number is going to change over time and even out. Being young and emotional and hot-headed about society is part of being young, and that creates change. And then getting older and realizing there's a lot more middle ground there, I think, is part of maturing and growing up. And I think we're going to continue to see that pattern with younger generations.
Okay, we are at the top of the hour. Thank you again, Andrew, for spending time with us today. This was a really wonderful and informative session. And for everyone watching, thank you for your interest and for the thoughtful questions. If we did not have time to get to your question, someone from TFO will reach out to you. If you have any questions after today's event, please reach out to your TFO team. On behalf of everyone at TFO Family Office Partners, we thank you for watching and look forward to having you join us for future webinars. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it, Kim.